Let's talk some Oregon recruiting. The number one recruiting class in 2026. The Ducks are off to a hot start, and they got a big weekend on deck. The number one recruiting class has a couple number one players at their position on campus this week, Steve. A huge opportunity for the Ducks. Let us know who's going to be there.
Yeah, four number ones, Josh, at their respective positions. That starts
Crazy.
with receiver Chris Henry Jr. He is committed to Ohio State, and he told me over the weekend it is going to be hard to flip him from the Buckeyes. He doubled down on that following Ohio State's national championship win on Monday night. But if there's a program that can do it, the one we're keeping the closest eye on is Oregon. He has been out there since he committed to Ohio State. Love Junior Adams, the offense, the culture, the level of football that Oregon is playing at right now. So Oregon is certainly in the thick of it for Chris Henry Jr. You have the number one linebacker in the country, Tyler Atkinson from Loganville Grayson. He is going out to Oregon this weekend. Programs like Georgia, Auburn, Texas, Texas A&M, Ohio State have been in the thick of that recruitment, but he's excited to get out to Oregon, see it, talk football and scheme, and see how he fits in out west. I imagine this visit to Oregon will be a real needle mover for Tyler Atkinson. You have the number one athlete in the country, Brandon Arrington. He was one of the first prospects in California that Dan Lanning went and saw when coaches started getting on the road this month. He enjoyed the dialogue with Coach Lanning, called him a straight shooter, and he is excited to continue to build this relationship with Oregon. Texas A&M and USC are the definite frontrunners from Brandon Arrington, but Oregon is getting involved. And then you have the number one safety in the land, Blaine Bradford. LSU is the on-3 RPM favorite for the local Baton Rouge Catholic safety, but he is strongly considering four other programs. Oregon is one of them. He is excited to get out there and see the culture for himself, get around the staff in person. His older brother signed with LSU in 2025. He obviously has great familiarity with the Tigers, but Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon, and Alabama are four other programs that he is taking a lot of time to get to know, visit, and go through the process with. And it's Oregon's turn this weekend.
Yeah.
Oregon's got a lot of top prospects on campus this weekend, Josh. One more name I want to mention, a guy that's not a five-star, but he's a guy that's near the top of Oregon's board. They were one of the first to offer him, is offensive lineman Jax Tanner. They've had him on campus for camp. He's been to games. He's now expected back this weekend. I think Oregon is the leader for Jax Tanner.
All right. I want to talk about these number one players at their position. There's four of them. And looking at the names, this is no knock on Oregon. They take big swings at everybody in the country. But looking at Chris Henry's committed to Ohio State. Tyler Atkinson, only going to make his first visit to Oregon, has strong ties to Georgia, some other programs. Brandon Arrington, we know he's been heavily leading toward Texas A&M. Blaine Bradford has ties to LSU. So this seems like a tide-turning weekend for Oregon. Which of the four do you think Oregon could really kind of change the pace of their recruitment with this weekend?
Well, if you're handicapping the order of where I think
Sure.
Oregon could land these guys, I think you have to put Chris Henry Jr. number one. That's not a prediction flip, but just like his familiarity with Oregon. He's been out there a couple times already. They're obviously in the thick of it for him, but he is committed to Ohio State. Brandon Arrington, I would put next. As a California kid that is not committed anywhere yet. Texas A&M and USC doing a good job there, but one of the fastest players in the country. Oregon has a lot to offer. Tyler Atkinson and Blaine Bradford are ones where they have intrigue and excitement about Oregon. It's kind of a new experience for them coming into the weekend. Those aren't the only number ones coming to campus. You have the number one tight end in the country, Kendry Harrison. He is committed to Oregon. He's from North Carolina. He chose the Ducks over the Tar Heels, over Penn State. And you look, it's the new era of recruiting, or it's this age of recruiting. I would imagine Kendry Harrison will keep some other schools warm, but Oregon getting him back to campus, he's the jewel of this class that ranks number one nationally. They're swinging at guys like Jared Curtis, the number one quarterback in the country. They're at the very least, they're in the top two for Jared Curtis right now. So coming off the season they had there, and there's not a head coach. I was talking to an SEC coordinator about this yesterday. There's not a head coach in the country that is more in line with the program's recruitment and involved in the actual relationship building of top targets than Dan Lanning. The way he communicates with the prospects and builds meaningful relationships with the people around him. He gets great respect from his peers across the country for what he does. I know people like to say, "Oh, it's Phil Knight money," and Phil Knight recruited these 5 stars, and obviously Oregon's got some really nice infrastructure that helps them on the recruiting trail. But there still is as much authenticism with them and the relationships that they build with their top prospects. And then, yes, there are some perks to come into play for Oregon, but you also are getting coached up and you're playing in the biggest games right now. And look, it's hard to win that last game, but they'll go after it again this year with Dante Moore under center.
Yeah, Oregon fans, how we feeling about this weekend? Some big, heavy hitters on campus. Chris Henry, Tyra Atkinson, Brandon Arrington, Blaine Bradford, and more. Who do you think, in the end of it all, will be a Duck? Let us know. Comment section below.